We are back. It is another Thursday, which means the start of another NFL week. And boy, are we excited about tonight's AFC North matchup. Welcome to Saving Thursday. My name is Ryan Pinder. There's Tyson Cole out in Vancouver. We have producer Jack with us. It is presented by Bet Victor, and they're getting some action this week because we have a lot to like about this divisional matchup. Tyson, how are you today, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm just so excited. Like you said last week, Amazon spent about $1 gajillion on all these Thursday night football games, and I think this might be the best one we've seen yet. So I'm super looking forward to this one.
Interestingly, second time Baltimore has been on Thursday night, but the other was the season opener against Kansas City. It's kind of not really a Thursday game so much as the NFL's back, and that was not boring at all. Of course, you had the heels or the toes of Isaiah Likely out the back of the end zone, nullifying what would have been a game-tying touchdown in the final moments. It was a banger. We've had some good ones. I am going to say, though, I do expect this to be better than Denver, New Orleans.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it might be better for you, but I love that game. That was pretty fun and entertaining for me as a Broncos fan. But right. You're absolutely right. I mean, we had that explosion on Thursday when it was Bucs Falcons a few weeks ago. So, I mean, we've had a lot. We should be, very thankful compared to previous seasons.
Yes.
But tonight will be a banger for sure.
I recall the worst ever of Thursday Night Football was very early in the lifespan of Thursday Night Football because teams didn't really know. Okay, we're cutting our practice week in half, and then they started the color rush uniforms, which kind of looked like what I expect a meal looks like in your stomach after mixing together for hours and throwing a bunch of acid in and stuff. Like just gross, bad team, bad jersey, bad football, low scoring. But you're right, $1 billion a year from Amazon. That has helped. We got some good matchups. And the Bengals and the Ravens meet for the second time this season. We'll get into the matchup in a moment, but the last time they met, 41-38. The over definitely hit. It was a fantasy bonanza. We'll see if there's another one on tap tonight. Let's start, though, recapping some of the news of the week. Something incredibly recent, just in the last couple hours. Trevor Lawrence, very unlikely to play this weekend, and suddenly the remainder of his season in jeopardy. The line was 4.5. The Vikings laying against the Jaguars, now up to a full touchdown. The books have spoken. They don't think Lawrence is going to go this weekend, and a miserable year for the Jaguars. Another bump on the road of what was supposed to be star-studded career of Trevor Lawrence. He's just a guy in the NFL that throws the ball. He's not a star, is he?
No, not at all. I mean, there was so much hype coming in to his draft year, like is this the best prospect since Andrew Luck, and before that Peyton Manning, but that hasn't really came to fruition. And I don't really know what it is, like weapons, I'm not sure, but he hasn't fully put it together. But you just saying that line that it moved to a full touchdown, I don't think that's enough because Mac Jones is in. This defense is terrible. The Vikings have been great so far this year. They've kind of slowed down a little bit, but this could be a perfect bounce back spot. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's brutal for the Jags. And honestly, at this point of the season, you're already out of it. Why are you going to try and rush him back? I think you try and, just let him sit, let Mac Jones play and solidify the number one pick for the third time in 5 years?
Oh man, not good. Yeah, they're not catching Houston in the AFC South. That's I'm not worried about that. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. They Minnesota, one of the teams that got ahead of the trade deadline, they went and added a pass rusher, someone to help their defensive line. But there were some more significant deals that just got under the wire, I believe, yesterday. Jack, he's excited. Producer Jack, big Steelers guy. Mike Williams is the receiver that the Steelers got. It is. I didn't see it on CTESPN. Antonio Brown did not project this one amongst the other numerous receivers that were going to end up in Pittsburgh. Your thoughts on the former Charger and oft injured play and field stretching wide receiver?
It feels like forever that we were just waiting for this to happen.
Yeah.
Like literally since the preseason, they're in on Brandon Ayuk. They're in on Devontae Adams. What was it? Andy Isabella to their practice squad. That was going to be the big move. Yeah. They finally get the wide receiver, Mike Williams. I like it. He's obviously had some health problems, but he's big time receiver that can stretch the field. And what's Russell Wilson still get at? He's still got that deep ball. So I think opposite of George Pickens, you've put Mike Williams out on the other side. Yeah. You now can move Calvin Austin into more of the middle slot role. He's had some dynamic plays over the last couple of weeks. And then let's get Van Jefferson off the field. I don't need to see him anymore. I like the pickup if he can stay healthy and help us get some more offense down the stretch.
That little caveat's everything. Mike Williams, when he's healthy, can do some things.
Yeah.
The problem is a part of productivity is availability. He's been hurt a lot his career. It's a crucial, 8 weeks for Mike Williams to be healthy here for the Steelers?
I mean, do you not think that another wide receiver would have better complemented Pickens? Because Pickens is kind of that deep ball guy. He's trusted down the field and all that. He's not kind of the, short middle area of the field. So if you bring in Mike Williams, another field stretcher, does that not kind of interact rather than complement?
Yeah, they were in on Christian Kirk, who is one of the better slot receivers, I would say, in the game right now. And I would have rathered that. I think I would have rathered Christian Kirk. I saw it was a 3rd round pick. They ended up getting Mike Williams for a 5th round pick. Yeah. So yeah, they're two completely different types of receivers. And they end up getting Williams. But yeah, I think I'm with you, Tyson. I would have rather had that Christian Kirk type receiver than the Mike Williams type.
But hang on. What if you could get the guy 5th in Carolina Panthers receptions and targets? What if you could get Jonathan Mingo and pay more than you did for Mike? What? Dallas Cowboys boy, Jerry Jones. I need if you're someone that has been caught drinking and driving, you're going to get punished, and rightfully so. You're not allowed to do that. Some people have breathalyzers installed in their cars as part of their returning to normal societal status. Jerry Jones needs a breathalyzer before he can get into the computer that does roster moves and things for the Cowboys. This is insanity, guys. Dak Prescott to IR. CeeDee Lamb probably going to be missing a bit, and he spends up big time for a receiver that may or may not have significant tools, was drafted, was decent draft capital, but has done nothing in Carolina. What the hell's happening with the Cowboys, Tyson? It's peak insanity. It gets crazier every week.
I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Sure, if Dak is healthy and that, then sure, get him another weapon. I guess he's only his 2nd year, so maybe he's got some upside. I mean, we haven't really seen that in Carolina, but is that more of, who's throwing him the ball, like Bryce Young? Maybe he could do it with a better quarterback, but
Cooper Rush ain't a better quarterback. That's
exactly. And I don't think that's not going to help you right now. So It was kind of a head scratch and move. I didn't really like it. Didn't really make sense to me.
We noted the Prescott's going to be gone for a bit. We'll see on CeeDee Lamb. They're talking a brave face about this weekend, but we heard multiple weeks right away a possibility. So to not miss any would seem a little odd. So keep an eye on that if you've got any wagering or fantasy interests around the Cowboys. Other moves made. Zadarius Smith goes to Detroit. That's a nice ad for a team that lost Aiden Hutchinson, so they get a little boost on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah, I mean, Aiden Hutchinson was a beast. He was leading the league in sacks. He was probably close to winning Defensive Player of the Year. Sorry, Jack, about TJ.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the runaway now, but you needed to add, especially when this defense is pretty good at stopping the run, pretty good at rushing the quarterback. You needed that other weapon that could do that. And I mean, it was inevitable. They were going to add somebody anyway. And Zadarius Smith is a great ad.
Couple others to talk about. Marcus Lattimore of the Saints. He moves to the Commanders, who have been the surprise story of the football season, at least one of the top few. I know Jack would lobby for the Steelers. Those two clubs meet this weekend. More on that later. But Washington wanted to beef up their pass defense. They do that here with a swap with the Raiders.
I mean, that's a great ad. He was the number one cornerback that he had a lot of other suitors trying to get in on him. He ultimately ends up with the Commanders, which is great because if you were here the first few weeks, we were when we were saving your Sunday, we were always targeting the wide receiver one going against the Commanders. Right. But recently they've been getting better, but now you bring in Lattimore. He's that number one shutdown cornerback. I mean, they could make a legitimate run here. Who knows?
It's fun. There's not a lot more fun than having a good young quarterback who you think could be a superstar in the NFL. That's kind of like the most exciting time of a team's life cycle, unless you're a Patriots or Chiefs fan. Doesn't seem fair. It's
whatever.
But I mean, you've got Jaden Daniels, and you've got rid of that shitty owner, and you've got a pretty formidable run game, and now you add a little more to the defense. Impressive start. We'll see. Fun one this weekend. We'll get to it later. And finally, the other move on trade deadline day I wanted to mention, Herbert comes over from Chicago to Cincinnati. Khalil once was going to be the man in Chicago, but had fallen off the depth chart he indeed will be in action tonight for Cincinnati. I don't know how much of the playbook he'll have. It may or may not be easier at running back versus other positions. I have no clue, but he was basically not being used in Chicago. And with Zach Moss out in Cincinnati, he now will be part of a group of running backs where if Chase Brown needs a breather, he could spell him for a moment.
For sure. I'm going to be quite honest. I don't even know who their backup was behind Chase Brown, like Travion Williams or something like that. And regardless, it was a no-name and it was a needed addition, especially because last week, I mean, we saw how much they used Chase Brown, and, you know, he kind of got banged up a little bit towards the end of the game, but, you know, you need another bruiser like that. So I thought it was a great kind of Zach Moss replacement because he can kind of do that running game, like the short area of the field and all that. And then you have Chase Brown to be the elusive guy. In terms of tonight, I don't really know. Like you said, kind of a short turnaround to learn a whole playbook. He is active, but we'll see how much is utilized.
Yeah, these are scary spots. This is not usually the time to jump on a prop when you haven't seen how integrated a guy is. He only arrived midweek. It's Thursday night. If it was Sunday, maybe I'd feel differently, but it's definitely a sit back and watch to see how involved he is type of spot for me. Canadian got paid, Chuba Hubbard, $33 million over the next 4 years for the running back from the Edmonton area. Great to see.
Yeah, I mean, you love to see any Canadian get paid, especially on our show here up in Canada. What does that mean to you? Like, I'm happy that he got paid and everything, but with Jonathan Brooks, you just drafted him pretty high, the number 1 running back drafted last season. What does this mean? Are you going to be running back by committee? I'm not entirely sure, but Chuba has looked great this year. I believe he's 6th in rushing yards, 7th in rushing yards right now, across the entire league. And that's not really something you'd expect after being on a Carolina Panthers team who's really struggled this season.
Your questions about the signing are not missed by others. The memes are flying. So this is, of course, what is it, Gru from Despicable Me or Minions saying, hey, we're going to bring in Miles Sanders, $25 million. What a great idea. And then immediately Chuba Hubbard becomes RB1. Sanders hardly touched the ball since he got there. Then they use a second rounder to draft a guy coming off a torn ACL. He's probably a first-round talent, Jonathan Brooks, if not for the injury. And then the moment he's healthy, he is expected to make his debut this week. If he doesn't, he's shut down for the year. Now we'll assign Chuba to $33 million.
This is why they're the worst franchise in the NFL. When everyone else is going away from the running backs and paying them, they're doubling down. And they're using high draft picks.
Yeah.
Oh, the Panthers.
Oh, the Panthers indeed. Yeah. They don't want Jaden Daniels. They're happy with Bryce Young, right?
I mean, that's an all-time whiff right there. You could have had CJ Stroud.
So early. Yeah, Stroud needs it early. So early. I guess wrong year. Sorry, it's CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
My bad. That's amateur hour. And finally, the much-awaited return of Christian McCaffrey may indeed transpire this weekend, Tyson.
I mean, we've all been waiting for it. I mean, we thought he was going to play week 1. This wasn't an injury.
Is the crazy part.
Yeah, we thought he was going to play this season, especially right off the bat. I definitely made the mistake of drafting him first overall in a fantasy league, so I'm very excited. But I was smart. I drafted Jordan Mason too, so had that stack no matter what. But
good.
I would say that he's not going to be his full workload, Christian McCaffrey.
You don't need to, right? I mean,
it doesn't make a lot of sense to do that. You've got your weapons outside of Ayuk now fully healthy. Juwan Jennings should be back. Debo should be up to full health. And I mean, Jordan Mason's looked great. So I think it's more of an ease in situation, but I mean, give it a couple weeks. McCaffrey will be back to his normal self and busting up my fantasy league.
The interesting part about the Niners, they're 500, which is not good. They've had some ugly losses. They've turned wins into losses late, I think, with the Rams game. But in that division, they're a half game out. 5-4 Cardinals lead the way. They're dogs this week. Everyone's kind of just waiting for the Niners to get going. They're in Tampa Bay, who have been a tough out, but nowhere near fully healthy. Do you feel the pressure for the Niners to okay, let's go take this division right now? Let's start ringing out the Christian McCaffrey rag, or do they have the patience to say, we're not going to be measured by week 10 results. It's what's going to happen in the new year.
Yeah, I mean, the way you beat the Buccaneers, I wouldn't be worried. But the way you beat the Buccaneers is through the air. So
Right.
even with McCaffrey back, like you don't have to use him that much. So it's really just going to rely on Brock Purdy. So he's up for a contract. He's going to need to show off why he deserves that, extra big money. But like I said, you're fully healthy. And I mean, this Bucks team, I just feel bad for them because Baker's balling out right now. And they're so decimated with injuries. Godwin done for the year. Mike Evans. I don't necessarily see such a worry this week. And I mean, with how bad they've played, to now pass their bye, be fully healthy, and still be in the race, I feel like is such a good spot for them to be in. And I definitely think they'll be taking over the division shortly.
Yeah, no, they don't have Ayuk for the remainder of the year, but Ricky Pearsall, who was shot in training camp, he's in there. Juwan Jennings is back. It's interesting. We'll see what that offense looks like. Kittle's come to life. If you can add McCaffrey, usually if you had three of those four guys, McCaffrey, Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo, they could make some magic. And they won't have four the rest of the year, but they will be fun to watch. Let's get into tonight's matchup. Cincinnati at Baltimore. It is the Ravens favored by 5.5 on Bet Victor. Jack, as always, you can check the updated odds, but these were a screen grab from earlier today. The money line telling you that the Ravens are indeed heavy favorites, minus 275. Bengals have been much better of late, but it was an ugly start that's really hurt them. They were a 1-4 football club that have won 3 of their last 4 to get to a mark of 4-5. The over-under is 52.5. 5.5 being the spread, or implied score is going to be like, what would it be? 28 to 22-ish, something like that. Does my math check out?
That'd be about 50.
Really, that's too many.
Yeah.
Close. So either way, we're expecting lots of points. And
I think this is the highest over-under of the season so far.
Is that right? Because it's high. It's nice to see something in the 50s if you love betting overs like we all.
I think there's been a 52.5. I don't think anything's been over this
week. Niners Bucks is 50.5, and I know you guys are talking about the season, but I'm just trying to give a little context. 47.5.
Definitely the highest on this
Colts.
slate.
Yeah, and this week it's far and away the highest. 50.5 for Rams Dolphins Monday night. That's another big total. I'd understand why with those two offenses both finally back to healthy, but. Yeah, point being is we're expecting a shootout. And as we're going to get to in a moment, Tyson, it's not just that these teams are offensively gifted. Each team is good at specific things, and most of those things are specifically the Achilles heel of the defense they face. This is a juicy matchup on both sides of the offenses here.
Well, that's why I'm so excited. Everybody loves points. This new kickoff rule has actually kind of benefited that points-wise. So I'm just excited, like the strength of one team is like you said, Achilles heel of the other team's defense. So should be an exciting game for sure.
Slow starts plague both teams. We mentioned the 1-4 start of Cincinnati. They've always been slow starters. It feels like, Jack, like what's up with Joe Burrow and the boys? They're always like, 0-2 teams are this, 0-3 teams are that. Another slow start for them. Baltimore was 0-2 as well. Before they put the boots to the Dallas Cowboys. They won 5 in a row there, then have lost in 1 since. So 6 of their last 7. The Ravens have found what their identity is, and to no surprise, it's running the football, but now it's doing it with a prolific all-time great in Derrick Henry. He's been an absolute monster.
Yeah, I mean, what an upgrade it is on Gus Edwards from last year. I mean, his prop for a touchdown is like minus 250 and above every week. That's just ridiculous, but for good reason. He's scoring upwards of 2 touchdowns almost every game. So this run defense is way too much to handle for the entire league.
Yeah. Okay. Other notes on these two clubs. Chase Brown has, we told you about the Zach Moss injury. He's separated and had a really good few weeks. I don't know. This is the spot you want to play him in the run game because Baltimore's run D is very stout. The T. Higgins, Jamar Chase thing is interesting. When they're both healthy, Chase goes off. When Higgins is gone, Chase hurts. Sometimes you see a guy pick up the slack when another guy's gone. In this offense, you need them both so they don't just drape guys all over Chase.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to look at their splits with Chase when Chase has T in the lineup as opposed to when he doesn't. it's unbelievable. And like you said, like you can't leave T. Higgins alone and just double Chase. So you have to have a guy and respect T. Higgins. So that opens everything up for Chase, like you said. But now it's a little worrisome. The matchup's great, but are they going to be able to just double team Chase the whole time? Does that open up a lane for another wide receiver? Granted, Yoshi Voss isn't anything to write home about. I mean, I don't know. It'll be something to overcome for sure for Chase and the Bengals, but it might not be out of reach for him.
And we'll get into the matchups. It's a good matchup for a passing offense. Baltimore, always a defensive juggernaut, haven't been that against the pass. They've been quite good against the run, but not against the pass. On the other side, Baltimore, we talked about the season Derrick Henry's having. Lamar Jackson's your MVP midseason, I guess, favorite to win the award. And they had a receiving core that they've bolstered a little. Deontay Johnson comes in to add to a group that's got the sophomore Zay Flowers and Bateman, who stretches the field, but you don't really see or hear from a ton. Also of note, last time we checked in on the Bengals and the Ravens, it was week 5 when they met. Mark Andrews may as well have been on the back of a milk carton. He had nothing going on. He had multiple goose eggs over, I think, weeks like 3 to 5. And it was like, he just might be done. As producer Jack Youngfellow, he's cooked. He's cooked. Interestingly, Mark Andrews is now cooking, which is different than being cooked. He's been back in a big way the last few weeks.
Which is great to see. During those, that first half of the season where he wasn't doing anything, it was because their offensive line was so bad. So they had to use Andrews as a part of the pass blocking, right? But now we're starting to see him, down the field and utilizes the weapon we all know that he has been. Now it'll be interesting because there's no Isaiah Likely tonight, which we'll get to later. But no Isaiah Likely. Does that mean that Deontay is now more used in the slot and Andrew stays to pass block because Likely's not there to do that? Or does that mean full handcuffs are off? He's getting the full tight end snap workload and all that for the passing routes and everything. So it'll be exciting to see, but it's hard to call.
I want to dig in on Deontay Johnson a bit because I feel like we're still waiting. And it's weird to say that about a guy his age, but he basically got the decrepit arm may as well have fallen off Big Ben years. He then gets Kenny Pickett, who aside from a hot preseason has been hot shirt and not an NFL starting quarterback. And then he goes to Carolina, who've been incredibly dysfunctional. I mean, do we get to see Deontay Johnson with a good quarterback for the first time in like a half decade here, Jack?
Yeah, it seems that way, right? Like you alluded to, he got the end of Ben's career and his elbow was shot. And he goes to Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph and Mitch Trubisky. And then Pittsburgh says, you don't want to be here? Okay, we'll send you to the worst team in the league. And that was very short-lived. So, yeah, he is getting probably the best quarterback play of his career. It's just a matter of time. Like we saw last week, DeAndre Hopkins comes out after, what was it, the 3rd week with his new team? Huge game. So I'm expecting kind of something similar here for Deontay. One of these games he will hit for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because he was a guy, he'd always drive you nuts. It's like 8 receptions, 28 yards.
Tons of volume.
But that's not this, like Lamar can haul it down the field. This ain't 40-year-old Big Ben here. So how he fits in, we'll see. I do like the Andrews thing as well. Likely has had some big weeks. You just never seem to know when they are. I'll tell you when it's not coming. It's tonight because he's not playing. So Andrews hot and with less competition, an interesting matchup. Let's go to our buddy at the Action Network, Jill Gallant. He on the East Coast, producer Jack and I in Calgary. You, of course, Tyson, on the West Coast. We're going full coast to coast on our picks this week. He checks in with his anytime touchdown bets of the week every Thursday on the Action Network. He's also the host of the Touchdown Show Sundays on the Action Network. His 2 picks this week, tight end Mark Andrews, who is plus 175 for an anytime touchdown on BetVictor. And the other tight end on the other side, Mike Gesicki, who is an interesting case. Whenever T. Higgins is out, Gesicki seems to pick up the slack in terms of targets. When Higgins is in there, he's almost ignored. Plus 200 for a Gesicki anytime touchdown. So a double up on the tight ends for Double G. Jill Gallant out east on the Action Network. Next week, I believe he'll be joining us live on the program. Thoughts on those anytime props?
Well, I'll just start on Gesicki. And like you said, when Mark Andrews isn't in, Mark Andrews, T. Higgins isn't in, Mike Gesicki goes off. I'm just looking at the 4 games Gesicki has played with the Bengals without T. Higgins this year. Against New England, only 10 yards. But the next three, 91 against the Chiefs, 73 against the Eagles, and 100 last week against the Raiders. So he absolutely explodes. So if he's getting all this more volume, and like we're kind of maybe predicting that Chase might get the double team, that means that big Mike Gesicki over the middle is going to be open quite frequently. So I definitely like that. In terms of Mark Andrews, he's just got great history against the Bengals.
Yeah.
It is kind of scary because this is a down year for sure for Andrews. It's not something we've really ever seen before. But touchdown wise, like just looking at it, he's got 3 in his last 6 games. So he's scoring at about a 50% rate against the Bengals, who don't have a great coverage defense against the tight ends. So both tight ends are in a great matchup to find the end zone tonight.
Yeah. And I just like the targets, the usage, the interest in getting the ball to Mark Andrews we've seen in the last month. The first 2 months of the year was baffling, but it's been a really nice run for anyone that's invested in Andrews. So those are his picks. Plus 175 on BetVictor for Mark Andrews, plus 200 for Mike Gesicki. Tight end love from Gilles Gallant. Let's get to our injuries from producer Jack. This is the second meeting of the season between Baltimore and Cincinnati. Who will not be available?
Yeah, we'll start with the Ravens. A bit of a short list here, like Tyson alluded to. Isaiah Likely will not play. So see a lot more of Mark Andrews. This is a team that does like to run 2 tight ends. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe we see some more Deontay Johnson, among other things. And then just some backups on the defense. Brent Urban and Arthur Davis, defensive back, is out. On the Bengals side, T. Higgins, doubtful. I doubt he plays. Starting left tackle, Orlando Brown is questionable with a knee injury. BJ Hill, starting defensive tackle, is questionable with a rib injury. And then not an injury, but something I want to talk about, rookie Jermaine Burton, who skipped practice Saturday morning and then didn't play, showed up in his pajamas, and Joe Burrow was pissed at him. I don't know if you guys saw that game. He was sitting on the bench and he basically told him get up and be involved. So interesting there, because they're kind of short at the wide receiver position today. Does he get on the field? Can he make some plays? He's a talented kid.
Yeah. The Jermaine Burton story is interesting because on just talent alone, I was reading reports suggesting he's a first-round guy, but the behavioral be a good teammate part has been elusive. And sometimes you see that in college or that rep, and maybe it's not, founded with good basis, but Randy Moss drops in the draft because, there was question marks off the field. He proved that those concerns were overstated. Jermaine Burton's the opposite. He's leaning into the reason he slid to round 3. He's an immensely skilled young receiver, but hasn't, despite all the injuries T. Higgins has had, really been able to make much of the opportunity because he can't seem to get in a spot where the team trusts him to be on the field. I'm a big keeper nerd for fantasy football. I drafted Jermaine Burton this year. I love that, T. Higgins is gone near and this kid's got all the tools, but the off-field stuff hasn't gone away.
Yeah, I mean, he like you said, he's got all the tools. He's such a talented wide receiver, but it's between the ears. It's his ego that's kind of getting in the way. But because think about it, like growing up and like going through college, he's known as, the best player on the team. He's always the one that's most trusted to make all these plays. Now falling in the draft, then coming into the NFL and not immediately seeing playing time, it's got to obviously disrupt, piss him off. So I just don't understand. How do you show up late in pajamas, dude? Like, what are you doing?
It's just we were doing the Lord of the Rings
party.
Doing a marathon there and lost track of time.
Yeah, I don't know.
Guys, here to play.
I mean, hopefully he can figure it out and maybe redeem himself tonight after what was a terrible character move. Yeah. One thing before we go.
Yeah.
This is going back to this last weekend. Did we not see what DJ Moore did against the Cardinals?
I've heard a lot of talk about DJ Moore. Was he not 100%? Was he turning his back on the play? I think one thing we can probably surmise is that he's not thrilled with the coach, or at least the way that offense in Chicago is running, or perhaps maybe the way it isn't running.
Yeah, he's not, getting the hyper targets like he did with Justin Fields. And I believe that he had a really good relationship with Fields. He wanted him to stay in Chicago, but just the effort. I saw some plays on Sunday where he's just running a quick out route to get a first down, but he's not using that burst, and it's man coverage. And DJ Moore's got speed. You can burn your guy, and he doesn't do that. He allows the defender to keep on him. So there's a little bit, you're not really trying for your team. But then the play that I'm talking about where Caleb Williams rolls left, DJ Moore's on the left, and it looks like Caleb is about to get sacked, and he just walks off the field while the play's still going on and sits on the bench. And then Caleb runs around to the right side to make another pass. And he's on the bench when he's supposed to be out there. That's just terrible character issues. And I needed to bring that up if we're talking about that with Burton.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Not what you want to see. Doesn't mean it can't be corrected or that there isn't something we don't know, but you hate to see it. It doesn't often. I don't look good. That's for sure.
All right, back to tonight.
Let's get to the data. That's a wrap on injuries, right, Jack? I'm not cutting you off there. We're good.
Nope. Yeah, that's it.
So from Jack's injury report, we go to Tyson's nerdy spreadsheet for props, which is one of our favorite things to dive into as we look for value on props. Green means go. It means you got a guy playing against a defense that is not good at guarding them. Red is the opposite. So, for example, not a lot of bright red here today, but there's three things. The Cincinnati Bengals don't allow running backs a lot of receiving yardage. That's not a huge thing for Derrick Henry. Maybe it is for Justice Hill. On the other side, the Ravens, very good at stopping the run. 58.4 yards a game, second best in the NFL. I love Chase Brown, the Canadian, and what he did last few weeks. This is not the week for Chase Brown props, I don't believe, at least in the running side of things. And Joe Burrow, I don't know how much we expect him to be using his feet, but the Ravens very good at stopping quarterbacks with their legs. Now, that's all the red, basically. The rest is gravy, or really, really good is most of the rest. We are literally looking at the worst pass defense against quarterbacks by yardage, and on the other side, the worst defense against quarterbacks for rushing yards. It's Lamar against the soft rushing defense. It's Joe Burrow against the soft passing defense. And we're looking at top 3 spots for wide receivers yards against the Baltimore Ravens, for tight end yards and receptions against the Baltimore Ravens, like running back receiving yards against the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are good at D usually, but they're an absolute funnel to pass here.
It's unbelievable to see this, because normally they're always known for running the ball, but they're known for a great defense that's going to shut you down. I mean, Jack can attest to that after all the years he's had having to play that Ravens defense. But this year it's completely different. And I don't really know why. I don't believe they really lost anybody from last year. So it's just mind-boggling to see. Now, is that more of a byproduct of this Ravens offense as good as it's ever been? So other teams have to pass against them, and that's where they can utilize their strength against, maybe. But I mean, there are so many good spots in this matchup that I'm just super excited to dive into the props.
Well, let's do it. Wait no longer. Let's get right there. Our first prop of the week for the Bengals at the Ravens tonight. We are attacking what?
Well, we kind of talked about Jamar Chase already, and it might be a little scary because there's no T. Higgins and all that, and he performs way better with T. Higgins in the lineup. But it's just this matchup that I'm not scared of. Chase is the number 1 wide receiver in terms of fantasy, so he's going to be used and utilized in such a great matchup. But I will be honest, he's been not great the last 4 weeks. He's got 72, 55, 54, 43 receiving yards over the last 4 weeks, and I believe his line is 82.5 currently on Bet Victor. But I mean, who else do they have at wide receiver? You know what I mean? Like, they got Yoshi Voss and maybe Jermaine Burton if he can figure it out, but it's really just Chase. And I mean, I'm excited. They utilize him. Sorry, words are hard. Yeah, utilize him all over the field, because I went and looked into the last matchup that they played against the Ravens. He had a reception against 7 different defenders, which means he's lining up everywhere just so they can't get to him. And last game against these Ravens, he had 193 receiving yards with 10 receptions and 2 touchdowns. So it's just a good smash spot. I mean, I hate being chalk and taking, the best wide receiver on the board, but in this matchup and his proven history against these Ravens, it's something I'm not going to ignore.
Yeah, and look, they might try to scheme something up. They're still the worst pass defense in the NFL. Like, I love Chase, who is I would put a case forth. He's the best receiver in football. I mean, Justin Jefferson's probably going to be the guy. Okay. But you could build an argument for Jamar Chase. I know CeeDee Lamb's had a lot of hype. That really hasn't resulted in a ton of yards this year, but Chase is a pro. He give him space and time. He's going to burn you. Mm-hmm. And after a slow start that he and Burrow should seem to have every year, he's back to having another Jamar Chase year. I like him against the weakest pass defense in the NFL. And I've even laddered this up to 100 in other spots because it's just not crazy to see Burrow and Chase connect for 100. This is the worst pass defense in the NFL. If it's going to happen, why not tonight?
I completely agree. It's just, I also did ladder him up to 100 too, because I mean, if you laddered him up to 175 last matchup, that would have hit. Like he just exploded. So I'm definitely going to play on that.
Just a quick note before we move on. Yeah. That line is moved to 84.5.
Okay. Ooh. And you know what? What's funny?
Let's keep going up.
Early in the week, it was 78.
Yeah.
And so what's Vegas doing here? And I say Vegas, I mean the sports books. Bet Victor and all the others are saying, man, everyone's liking the over here. And we're looking at the matchup like, yeah, okay. Like we're trying to balance our books. This is a good sign. Lock in as soon as you can. It might not be done at 84.5. Mm-hmm. I got him at 78.5 on what, Monday? Like when we were chatting in the group, like it's moving one way, and it's the right way if you've already got a bet down, because it's telling you this is very likely going to be a monster day for Jamar Chase.
Mm-hmm. I mean, usually you see it kind of move in the other direction, move down a bit because a lot of people are betting on it, kind of reverse line movement, but it's not happening this time because the books and Bet Victor know, like, hey, he's probably going to have a day. So, I mean, we'll see if that comes to fruition. Knocking on wood. Hopefully it does. The next prop I got, and I don't know if you noticed in comparative to last week's, but I never include quarterback rushing yards because, like we kind of talked about, it is depending on the matchup. Like if you're going to play Lamar, Jalen Hurts, Anthony Richardson when he was playing, those guys are going to get the rushing yards on you. But if you're playing like Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, those guys aren't going to run too much. So
it depends who you play.
Exactly.
Something you're going to get 30 of every game, and you do it. You allow what you allow. It's more just like who we facing. So tell us more about what you've seen from Cincinnati.
Well, they have played those guys, the top end rushing quarterbacks, but they haven't been able to stop them. They allowed, like we saw, they allow the most receiving or rushing yards to the quarterback. So I'm taking Lamar, of course. I believe it's over 48.5 on Bet Victor. Last time I checked. Jack, you can update us.
45.5 now, down 3.
Okay. It's moving down. Okay. Now that, I don't know. Does that scare me? I'm not sure.
Wow, look, if you like it at 48.5, you have to like it more at 45.5.
I know, but why is it moving?
Away from you.
Why is it moving? I don't know. I'm getting red right now. I'm nervous.
That's good. I like it. So Lamar, look.
I got some stats on him.
Good. So him getting to 50 is not crazy. This isn't a crazy ask.
Yeah, no. And I mean, he's been phenomenal this season. I think he's had 40 or more rushing yards in every single game except, let me check the notes, last week against the Denver Broncos. Just testament to how well they do. No, I'm just kidding. Got blown
31 out. 31-point victory. Probably didn't need to run.
Let's not forget about that. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He didn't need to run 31-point or 31-point victory. The lowest last season he ever had was 17. So seeing that last week was kind of strange, but this is a different game. One of the highest over-unders on the entire season. And it's a 5.5-point spread, but it's still going to be close. It's still going to be within a touchdown. At least Bet Victor's thinking that. So I think he's going to have to utilize his legs, especially because he didn't do that last week. And in the game earlier this season, he had 55 rushing yards. But his success runs further than just, in week 5. Over his last 5 meetings, he's had 50 plus rushes in every single game, averaging 61. So if you want to ladder it up, by all means do that. I'm not worried that it's moving down. I was originally, but I mean, it's just another great matchup that, it might look scary, but I mean, at the end of the game, are you going to be surprised if Chase is 100 yards and Lamar's 50 on the ground? Probably
nope.
Not.
Seems like every week that's a possibility for these guys, especially Lamar at 50. Like your point, it's 5 matchups in a row, averaging 61. Yeah. He knows how to run against Cincinnati. And yeah, you're not worried. Your face went from bright red down to like a normal flesh-toned pink hue. That's good to see, Tyson.
It's hot in here in Vancouver.
Last prop. It's hot here too. What do you like here?
I love so much. Like, I thought I was gonna go Mike Gesicki. I was gonna go Deontay
Gesicki.
Johnson.
I even
Mark
like Joe
Andrews.
Burrow passing yards.
Yep.
I know we're not touching that.
It opened at like 239, I think,
Yeah.
around 240, and now it's up to 274, which is crazy. I've never seen something move that high before, but
it's moved up over 10 yards since Monday. It was 263 on Monday.
Oh, it's 260. Okay.
Well, but it was even lower before that. I'm just saying the last few days. And now it's already up a yard from this morning after moving 10 yards. I mean, again, all indicators this could be major fireworks.
For sure. And if his receiving or his passing yards are going up, he's going to need to throw. And I think he's going to go to Chase Brown over 3.5 receptions. We finally waited for that takeover. Saw it last week. He exploded. He had a lot of rushing yards on the ground. I didn't write that down, but he had 5 receptions, 37 yards through the air. And that was against the Raiders, and they were blowing out that game. They didn't need to use the running back in the passing game, but they did anyway. Yeah. And like we talked about, Herbert's coming in. He's not a pass catcher by any means. He has 2 targets all season with the Bears. So I'm not worried about that. He's going to be the one utilized in the passing game. Another thing that I really like that I heard producer Jack say, Orlando Brown's kind of questionable for this game. If Burrow's getting attacked, he's just going to have to dump it off pretty quickly, right? And who's he going to throw to? Chase Brown. He ran the 3rd most routes of any Bengals player last week behind Chase and Yoshivas. Yeah. And I mean, like we saw on the chart, they allow a lot. I believe the 4th most receiving yards to running backs so far this season. So how do you get receiving yards? You get receptions.
And this is key. So the running back numbers against Baltimore, it's 2 very different signals. When running backs run the ball, Baltimore is 2nd best in the league. When running backs are receiving the ball in the backfield, like getting a pass, it's one of the top 5 most successful environments to do so. I'm with you. They're not going to be so hard-headed. They're going to run Chase Brown into the pile 30 times tonight. They'd rather use a little play action, slide him out into the flats. We can get Chase Brown involved without him running into a wall that he's not going to move. This is the bet that happens, that they see this matchup. They've got sheets like ours, probably even better, that say Chase Brown can have a day, but not if we're asking him to run the ball. He can have a day if we ask him to catch the ball.
Even better than these ones? Come on now. That's rude. I work hard on these things.
It's quite wonderful. If the Baltimore Ravens hired you or the Cincinnati Bengals, I'd expect we have an even greater colors, and you might even have invented a new font by now.
Look at how colorful it is. I mean, that takes a lot of
green. Better than last week.
Another thing with Chase, like you mentioned, they're depleted. They don't have T. Higgins, and they don't have a lot of playmakers, and they saw what Chase Brown could do when the ball's in his hands. Yeah. So, like you said, tough run matchup. How do you get the ball in his hands? Quick dump offs.
Yeah, I'm with you. It makes a lot of sense to me. You could have gone Gesicki. You could have gone more with Joe Burrow. There's a lot of areas, a lot of green to exploit. But Chase Brown's looked as good as he's looked in his NFL career. The way they get him involved today, it's simple. Don't hand it off to him. Toss it to him.
Yep. Agreed. Completely.
Okay, let's throw them up. Our 3 bets of the day, and there's a few adjustments in there. We will look at them. Great work here, producer Jack. We are over. Now that's 3.5, not 2.5, correct?
Yeah, 3.5.
Over 3.5 receptions for Chase Brown. We are over the total of 45.5 for Lamar Jackson rushing yards. And in receiving yards, we have Jamar Chase over 84.5. Those are props of the day at Bet Victor. Fellas, week 10. I believe I heard at some point, whether it was our good friend Scott Hansen or somebody else, that we have now passed the midway point of football games, I think in the regular season. Savor these final half of the season, or even less than half potentially. Great Thursday nighter here. Look forward to it. They combined for 79 points back in week 5. Let's have some fun. Let's make some moolah. It's not the only game this week, though. What's saving Sunday, or I suppose Monday, for you this weekend? What do you like? What are you watching? Jack, we start with you because your boys are back from bye.
Yeah, you guys know the answer. Pittsburgh heading to Washington. Pittsburgh coming off the bye week. Washington at 7-2. Pittsburgh at 6-2. New weapon, Mike Williams. It doesn't look like Lattimore is going to play. He is. I think he's got a hamstring injury when they traded him over there, so I don't think he'll be out there this weekend. But I'm still excited for this game. I don't know if it's going to be an actual good game to watch,
right?
But I think it's two good football teams, two good head coaches, and it'll come right down to the wire, like any classic Steelers game.
I'll say this: Steelers 6-2, incredible mark, beating the odds. It's turned out to be a very soft schedule. They can't book tougher teams in there. They have to play who's on the schedule. This is a good test for them. They win here, you start building credibility towards, like, instead of just, oh, they're good, it's like, why not the Steelers? So big spot for them. On the flip side, what is it? Rookie of the week, 7 of the 9 weeks. Jaden Daniels, just keep it rolling.
One thing I do want to point out, Mike Tomlin has been very good against rookie quarterbacks.
I believe that.
Coaching
all the good coaches are. Yeah, for sure. Tyson, what do you got this weekend that you like?
Well, I just want to ask Jack a quick question. Is this not whoever wins this game, Steelers Commanders, is this not a battle of who's actually legit?
Yeah, it kind of feels that way, doesn't it? Because I'm not sold on the Commanders, but then also I know a lot of people aren't really sold on my Steelers. So it does really feel like one of those games where it's like, okay, statement win. Yeah. You can kind of put this team in the top, 8, and then whoever loses probably slides out a bit.
I mean, looking at the spread, 2.5, I want to take the Steelers.
So do I, buddy.
Like that might be saving my Sunday.
Yeah. I'll tell you where I'm focused, boys, real quick. Detroit at Houston. Lions have been sensational this year. Houston's missing some pieces, and it might start being a free fall here if they're not careful. They lost last week against the Jets. I want to check in and see if CJ Stroud can hold this thing together. Nico Collins not practicing today. That's not a great sign. And then Monday nighter, just for pure entertainment value, you got Stafford with all his toys back, Puka and Cup, not to mention Kyron Williams. And then you got Miami with Tua leading the offense. We told you about the over-under at 50.5. That could be a fun one on Monday night with some fireworks.
Yeah, I mean, you said that right off the top. Dolphins, Rams, the offenses are healthy now. So hopefully we see some explosion on prime time. That would be awesome, because since Tua's been back, I mean, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle haven't really been doing anything special. And we haven't really seen like a full game of the Rams where, Cooper Kupp and Nakua are fully playing, because Nakua got ejected last game. Kupp went off. I've got a pick for Sunday.
What do you got?
Guys?
What do you like?
I actually got 2. One's very brief. One I have more in depth. Justin Jefferson over receiving yards, like we kind of talked about.
Every week seems to work.
It does, and I don't know why I haven't just been betting it, but Justin Jefferson's the best against man coverage this season out of any wide receiver, and the Jags run the most man coverage out of any team in the entire NFL. Just especially with Mac Jones probably not going to be able to move the ball as successfully as Trevor Lawrence has, means Sam Darnold is going to have the football in his hands a lot more. So Justin Jefferson, don't care what the number is, playing that. James Conner, rushing yards is what I'm really looking forward to. Jets rush defense, not great compared to their pass defense.
Right.
But this was unbelievable for me to find out. James Conner leads the NFL in forced missed tackles by 21.
Really?
By 21.
That seems like a huge chasm.
And guess who misses the second most missed tackles in the entire league? The New York Jets. So he's only got a 70.5 yard line, I believe. And I mean, they're upwards of 100 yards per game on the ground allowed, the Jets are. Right. And also, I mean, you saw last week, James Conner, he didn't get the 2 touchdowns. It was Amari DeMarcado and Trey Benson. So you kind of look at it, like, is he losing his work? Absolutely not. He had over 100 rushing yards last week against the Bears, who, I mean, their defense as a whole is great. The run defense is but a lot better than this Jets. So, I mean, I'm looking at Justin Jefferson and James Conner to save my Sunday.
Love that. I'm jumping on those. I'll tell you, Tyson, it's worked very well thus far. Fellas, enjoy the Thursday nighter. Let's hope there's fireworks. We got a lot of overs, and another 3-0 week would be lovely to see.
Make it happen.
We'll see you next week. Enjoy the weekend. Until then, this has been Saving Thursday for Bet Victor.